Oh, yeah.
God's sake, give more power to the people for God's sake.
This is Janice Allen Jackson, and I am so pleased to welcome you to this episode of the Local Matters podcast of Georgia, where we encourage our listeners to be more engaged citizens and more confident voters. One of the ways you can do that is to get to know the people that have been elected to serve you. And today, our guest is Commissioner Stacy Pulliam, Augusta, Richmond County, District 2. Today on Local Matters, we are featured with a guest appearance from our commissioner from Augusta District 2. How are you doing today, Commissioner Pulliam?
Doing great. How are you doing?
I am great. Thank you so much for joining Local Matters. Local Matters family, this is something new we are doing in 2025. We're going to have one commissioner on a month, and we're going in order. Jordan Johnson was with us a few weeks back. Today we've got Commissioner Pulliam, and then we'll go on to District 3, 4, 5, and keep going till we get through the whole commission. So tell us, first thing, this is Masters Week in Augusta, and,
Yes.
we record in advance, everybody. I think everybody knows that, but Masters Week in Augusta, spring break for the kids. What does a commissioner do during Masters Week?
Every commissioner does something different. So what I do is I entertain my 11-year-old and just kind of get to some of the events around town, still check on constituents and still work. So it's not necessarily a vacation week for me, but I still join in on the fun and festivity.
All right, cool beans. So as this is still your first term as a commissioner, are we now in year 3?
Yes. We are
Okay.
in year 3. Next year is election time. So get out and vote. Make sure you're registered. Y'all
Mhm.
do that early. But yes, this is year 3.
Okay. All righty. And tell us a little bit about yourself before you ran for office. I know you're in the real estate business. Are you from Augusta? Just tell your constituents some things they might not know about
Okay.
Stacy
All
Pulliam.
right. I'm such an open book. So most
Mhm.
people know pretty much everything. Google makes that happen nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
But I am originally from Virginia. So that's where I was born. And we moved to Germany. And then from Germany, we moved here. At the time, it was Fort Gordon. Now it's Fort Eisenhower. So my dad was military. And that brought us here in 1995. So I've been here for quite some time. Y'all stop trying to add up my age because I know people are counting. But glad to be alive. So I say that, but really don't care that people know my age because the older you get, that means God's blessed you to be here another year.
That is exactly right. I do not mind talking about age at all.
Yes.
We're in Virginia. Where are you from?
I'm from Lynchburg, Virginia.
Okay.
So I was born in Lynchburg, and then my dad was stationed at the time it was Fort Lee. I can't think of what it's changed to now because they've changed a lot of the fort's names, but that's located close to Petersburg, Virginia.
Okay. All righty. I went to college in Virginia and lived up there for a couple years after I graduated. So that's kind of my second home.
Okay.
So, you're from Lynchburg. I probably, if I think deep enough, I'll be able to come up with somebody that I know that's from that area. So cool beans. Military brat. Do you like that term?
It doesn't bother me.
Okay.
It doesn't. I don't really know how that phrase was coined. I'm not really sure why, but I loved the experience. So I had a great experience. We got to travel a lot and got to see different places. So it also cultures you. So you're not just used to one place. The world is so diverse and it exposes you to all of that diversity. So I think it's definitely helped, especially in the role that I'm in.
Okay. I think that's definitely true. And as I think about it, I was not the daughter of a military serviceman. My father had been in the Army, but it was a long time before I was born. So I though felt like I sort of had those same experiences having been raised in Augusta because I went to school with the children of servicemen. So I would see them, they'd come in and out, they'd tell me where they were from and things like that. So I felt like I had some secondhand exposure to all those places that they were from because I love talking to kids of the service personnel. and getting a feeling like, where you from? Where'd you move here from? How long you going to be here? All that kind of
Yes.
stuff. So yeah,
Absolutely.
and that is one of the coolest things I think about Augusta generally is that there's an infusion of folks either by virtue of the military or by virtue of the medical college or Augusta University, Payne College. Their parents would be teaching at the school, working at one of those schools, and that would cause folks to move in and out.
Yes.
So that was one of the things I liked about Augusta. I felt like I was exposed to people from other areas, and like you said, learning about different cultural experiences.
Yes.
So that is definitely one of the better parts about being in the Augusta area. So where'd you tell us where you graduated from high school? That's what everybody want to know.
So I graduated from Evans High School.
Okay.
I graduated from Evans. When we moved here, my parents were honestly and truthfully, they were steered to another county. And so as I hear that still happens, me being in the real estate industry, I don't do that. But I've not personally heard anyone do it. But I hear from buyers that sometimes that does still happen. So that's where we were steered to was Columbia County. And I graduated from Evans High School, did 1 year there, and then I moved on over to Richmond County.
Okay. Yeah. I think that steering is real.
Yes, it is, for sure.
I recall talking to somebody a few years ago. She moved at the time. It was just her and her husband. They didn't have any kids at the time. And they came in from wherever. I don't remember what it was. But yeah, they were told, oh, no, the crime's too high in Richmond County. You don't want to be over there, et cetera, et cetera. And, she wound up going to work for Augusta, Richmond County. But they said, well, there are only just a few small areas in Augusta where you want to be. So, yeah, the steering is real.
Mm-hmm.
Steering is real. They did live in Augusta despite the warning. But, yeah, it was, it's interesting how that has changed. Sometimes it's couched in the language of crime like it was with them. Other times it's couched in the language of, well, the school system's better. If you have school-age kids, you need to be in Columbia County. So, it's really changed the landscape from what it was when I was growing up. I mean, when I graduated, there were so many military kids that I had Richmond Academy with me. And sometime later on, I heard some stats where if you look at where the children of military personnel are going to school, it was more in North Augusta and Columbia County than it was in Augusta.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yes, all my children went to Richmond County. So my oldest she'll be 27 this year. I better get it right because I added on a year one time and she was like, Mom, no. So, they started at different schools. We have the choice vouchers. So you're able to go to different schools as long as you have those vouchers signed and approved and things like that. So they are all graduates of Richmond County schools and they're all doing very well. Minus the baby. Baby is still, well, he's not a baby anymore. He's 11, but he's still my baby.
Now, I happen to know one of your kids went to the same high school that my daughter graduated from, Richmond County Technical Careers Magnet.
Yes.
And I don't know about your child. Mine had a wonderful academic experience over there.
Yes,
Okay.
mine did too. He's actually graduating this year and just found out last night he sent us a picture. He was recognized as he won the national recognition. He's in a competition for debate. He's going into law school. So, but he just won the national championship and it was for attorney debate. So
Okay, cool.
that's really good. Just got that news last night. So we're super excited about that. But yes, he also went to TCM.
Okay, yep. First time I met you was with him, I think. He was the winner of our Augusta Rotary Club oratorical contest.
Yes.
So
So
yeah,
he's
that's
still
really
doing
cool.
it.
He's still doing it.
He's still
That
doing
is
it. Still a
awesome.
talker.
That is awesome. Right. Wonderful. Wonderful. So kids, you family person, who convinced you to run for office? How did that happen?
So, that story, I tell it so often. So I got connected to our now DA, Jared Williams, before he was the DA, before he was the Jared Williams, he actually took on some work for me pro bono. I had a client and her name was Kim Easterly, who actually ended up moving to Macon. And now she's moved again since then. And I got into some, I don't know, like a disagreement with my landlord over an air conditioned unit. And they literally were trying to bully me and force me out. But being the person I am, I kept records, kept emails, kept all of those things. And I had been having problems with the air conditioning since I moved in. And Kim said, call Jared. He just started, but Stacy, I think he'll be great. And Jared hadn't even moved over to the Hawk Law Firm yet. He was just kind of working, doing some, I don't know what he was doing. Jared took on my case and he was like, he didn't have to really do anything though. He made a few phone calls, but he reviewed all the paperwork. He said, you know what? I'll do the phone calls for you. I'll make some calls. I'll do some things. And he did. He called the landlord, told her, you know, hey, I've reviewed this information. Miss Pulliam has kept up with these records, this, that, and the third. Next thing I knew, Janice, I was getting a call from the landlord, said, we spoke to your attorney. I said, oh, okay, great. Because they were literally trying to force me out of the apartment. They were telling me they were going to refuse my rent. It was horrible, a really bad experience. And I had done nothing wrong. And so from there, a little bit later, Jared decided to run for office. And he was mentoring my son, AJ, Anthony, the one we were just speaking of. And so from that point, Jared told AJ, he said, hey, I'm running for office. I need your mom to work on my campaign. And I was like, why didn't he just call me? Because he had my number. And I guess it was easier to tell Anthony. And so from there, I started working on his campaign, get a call when he's about to do his big announcement on TV. And it was, hey, Stacy, I want you to announce me. I'm like, wait a minute. I wasn't prepared for that. And so I had the opportunity to announce him as my friend because it was very much that. And announced him as my friend. People were like, you're going somewhere. And I'm like, okay, where am I going? Like
train, plane,
exactly,
automobile.
exactly. Where am I going? And it just kind of exposed me to people in different areas. And so from there, I found out that Dennis Williams at the time was District 2 Commissioner. He was termed out.
Right. And
so it was suggested, hey, maybe you should run for this. And I'm like, I've never saw myself doing this. I just want to help people. And that's been my lifetime goal. Like, it's just to help people. And I call it a goal because I am consistently trying to figure out new ways to connect people to resources that they need. So I called my uncle who is in Virginia, Lynchburg. He's a councilman. And I said, Uncle Sterling, do you think I could do this? He was like, can you do it? What are you talking about? Like, you are that person. And so he talks me up and I'm like, yeah, I can do it. You know how you have those hype people behind you. And so then I called my father in Virginia. I talked to my mom and my dad here. And mom and dad, they were a little at first, you know, they were like, Stace, I don't know about this. You already do so much. But after some convincing, they were on board with it. And my prayer was, God, I'm going to do this. And if you want me here, I'll be here. My heart will be for the people. And it was kind of I hate to say that, but an effortless campaign because I just spoke the truth. I really just told my heart and I went out and I talked to the people. Like, what is it that you all want? And I want to help get that done for you. And that's what happened. And here I am. So coming up next election, God, if you still want me here, the people see what I've done. I'm not perfect, but I hope they know that my heart is for them. So that's it.
And as I recall, it's interesting that you say the race was effortless. And I know that's speaking, you know, in a certain sort of way, you can work hard, but it doesn't feel like labor. I think that's where you were coming from.
That's exactly what I mean by effortless.
I
got out there walking.
Yeah,
and knocking.
You had to because there were a lot of people in that race.
Six.
It was six
okay,
of us. I can't remember if it was 5 or 6. So you actually have 5 people running against you, and it went to a runoff?
Yes,
is that
it
right?
did.
Okay. Runoff between you and Von Pouncey? Okay, yes, right. Because you have so many elections down my head. So 6 people in the race, predictable that you'll go into a runoff. And then I think you won that runoff pretty easily.
It was
What were the numbers?
69%,
Yeah.
67, 69%, something to that effect. Don't remember exactly the number right now. And you're right. When I say effortless, I mean, for me, there's times where your adrenaline is pumping. My adrenaline's always pumping because I am a competitive person at heart. But still, my heart was literally, God, if this is for me, I'm going to put in the work. You make it happen. And so I'm always that person. I'm always thinking about what's meant for me. It's going to happen as long as I put in the work. If it's not meant for me, it's okay because God has something else.
Right.
And I'm still going to be putting in the work.
Right.
So that's what I mean by effortless.
Okay. Exactly. And thanks for defining that because I know you were working real hard out there.
It was horrible. And my back, actually, I had back surgery right before. So there were times where I couldn't even walk. I was being driven around in a car and I would just roll down my window and I would talk to people. So it had gotten bad at one point. But, we made it through.
You made it through. Did you have the kids on the campaign trail?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They were all here then pretty much, minus my daughter who's in Charlotte. But everyone else was here. So they were really helping. Now everybody's like scattered around. But I'm like, hey, guys, elections are coming up. So plan your weekends, right? Because y'all got to come back and help. So
at least you had a support team in there. How many kids? Is it 5, 6?
Yes. So it's quite a few kids, quite a few kids. We were a blended family. So it was quite a few children. So when they all come together, let's say it's more than 5. So there you go.
Okay.
Yes.
I knew it was a number. And it used to be that, back in the days, if you had 5, 6, 7 kids, it wasn't a big deal at all. That was average. But now people go, oh my God, that's so many kids.
Yes.
But I'm glad that they work together to help support mom and making this dream happen.
Yeah.
So as you indicated, didn't plan to run for office, you were just tapped to do so because people thought that you had what it took to deliver in elected office. Do you have vision now after having tasted it of doing anything different? I mean, could you see yourself running for something else later on, or do you even think about that stuff?
So I am a firm believer that right now I'm asking God to make each step I take crystal clear, right? And so we make plans, but in our plans, sometimes they don't come to fruition. That doesn't mean I don't believe in setting goals and, hey, this is something I'd like to do. What being in office has given me a taste of is that I really love being at the table for people. So whatever that looks like, however God will continue to allow me to be at the table, then that's what I'll do. And I know that there's so many it's multifaceted, right? So there's so many different ways that you can be at the table. You don't always have to be that in a political field, but it is definitely helpful because we know our commissioners set the policies and procedures that help to, that run the city, essentially. And so even as we're going through our charter review and things like that, we don't know what's going to happen, but I am very clear on that I always want to be a voice for those that are not heard. So whatever that looks like, I'm okay with that.
As you talk about being at the table for people, very constituent-centered approach to elected office, which is a little different from some others. Everybody has a different perspective in how they approach the job. Are there particular things that you've been able to accomplish that have really made you feel good about your service?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So GIC is one of those things, the Georgia Initiative for Community Housing. That's the first really large initiative that I got to, say, hey, I was a big part of this. Actually, I pushed and fought for this. Augusta had tried to become a GIC city at one point in time, and we didn't get it for various reasons. And then second time around, we got it. And I learned about that at one of the conferences that we attend. It was at a GMA conference. So those conferences are so important because you get to talk to people all around Georgia. And then when you go to the national conferences all around the United States, but it gives you a taste of what other people are doing in their communities and how they're making these programs work for them. And so it was at a GMA conference, and it was Madison, Georgia. The lady was from Madison, Georgia, and she was talking about how they had become a gig city, and they had created some multifamily housing for their seniors and some other housing opportunities. And Matt Forshee, he was there as well. He's with Georgia Power.
Yes.
Matt Forshee, he spoke as well. And he was just talking about how accessory dwelling units, how they can look different and how that could help solve some of the housing crisis that we have. And I was just so engaged because that's my background anyway. And fair housing is a big part of who I am because we need some place to live. Like, bottom line, we need some place to live. We need some place to do business. So, that's all around us. And so it's, how do I take my area, an area that is extremely blighted, and how do I help? What is it that I can do? Because we can tear the houses down, but people still need some place to live. So what programs are available to address affordable housing for that individual? Because that looks different from every person, for every person. And so that's one of the things I got accomplished. That we've torn down quite a few blighted structures. I think when Dr. Malik gave me numbers last year, we did 61. So that's a huge, that's really big. And so super excited about those things. Still working on transportation, still working on road paving. So we're going through, my list is continuously growing, and working on our flooding issues.
So a few things that leads me in several directions. Let's see if we can flesh that one out, because that's an excellent example. Does the program just provide funding for demolition, or does it do other things as well?
So GIC is not a funding source per se.
Okay.
Basically, it sets a blueprint.
Okay.
And so it helps you to connect with different grants and resources.
Mhm.
And because it's connected to UGA, there's so many people on board that help you look at the plans that you have and see how these plans can help that community. So it teaches you grassroots, going through the community to see what not only the constituents would like, but what things would be advantageous to that area. And when I say things, I mean not just housing, but even if businesses are included, like, what does this look like? So drawing out a plan for that community, and then using that plan that you've drawn out. Now, how do we execute it? How do we go after different funding sources? How do we pull in private-public partnerships? So it helps you with doing those things.
So it's really an assistance with planning process.
Exactly.
The planning process.
Exactly.
But those, once you have those plans, it positions the community to go seek resources.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. And again, getting back to the demolition, 61 structures being demolished. Was that using outside funding?
No. So
Okay.
that was literally within budget. And
Okay.
budgets, of course, always change. We know
Mhm.
that. And so we had something called Hurricane Helene.
Yes.
Yes. So budgets change, but I am very adamant about going out, making sure that we're taking pictures, we're looking at different, houses that need to come down, but it's a process. And so consistently telling my constituents that it's not just a matter of me sending in a house and then in 3 days it's gone, because who owns the property? Is it tied up in heirs property? All of those things. And then it has to go through the courts. So it's not just a 1, 2, 3 process. Sometimes it can take a year or so.
Easily.
2 years.
Yeah,
sometimes.
easily take
Yes.
that long.
So it is a process.
You addressed blight in
Mhm.
District 2, and that reminds me we probably need to give people a little primer on the boundaries for District 2. So can you help us out in explaining exactly where that is? I know the lines have changed a little bit too, so
They have.
please let us know where roughly District 2 is so people can get that in their mind.
Yes, absolutely. But I am always going to tell people to please go look at the map.
And please go look at the
Please
map.
look at the map.
Because it's not that
because
easy. It's complicated,
It
folks.
could be cut out. And so sometimes,
Yes.
like even with Central Avenue, like I have a little, very small piece of it, and then it goes back to 3
Mm-hmm.
and then 1. And it's
Mhm.
like, so this section's cut out. So it's not a straight line that's drawn. But if you're leaving Augusta Mall and everything from the right side, so Augusta Mall all the way down to Hurd Avenue, and then you're going to pick back up on Wrightsboro Road after Beacon Station, everything on the right-hand side. So let's come back up. So you have Daniel Field, you have Highland, you go across Gordon Highway, Pendleton King Park. You're going to have Cherokee Plaza. You're going to cut out the old Regency Mall. You're going to come up. So we're on Gordon Highway. You're going to cut out Regency Mall. You're going to come up. And then right when you get to the turn where Richmond Hill Road is, you can make a left and I pick back up. But Regency Mall and everything on that side is left out of my district.
Okay. The Regency Mall is still in 5?
Yes.
Okay. And now it goes almost all the way up to Augusta Mall? I didn't realize District 2 went up that far
Yes.
these
Augusta
days.
Mall
Okay.
is in my district. Yes.
Augusta Mall is in 2.
Yes.
Okay.
Augusta
Wow.
Mall is in 2.
Yeah, that's a switch because I think that used to be 5. But okay. All righty.
Yes. And so then I have Turpin Hill area. I have parts of Peach Orchard. And there's parts of when you're coming, let's see, if you're coming down Old Savannah Road, so Olive Road, Old Savannah Road, that area, I have it. You go into Old Savannah Road, you come around. So there you are. That's kind of, those are my borders.
Okay.
That's why I say go look at the map.
That's why you got to go look at the
That's
map.
why
But
you
that
gotta go
gives
look
us
at the
a
map.
general area. Now, you said Old Savannah Road. So is Allen Holmes still in District 1 then?
Yes, Allen Holmes is still in District 1. Mm-hmm.
But that industrial part of Old Savannah Road?
Yes,
is
so
in
when you're
District
coming
2?
out of Olive Road, that industrial part right there, yes, is District 2.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's right. Allen Holmes is New Savannah Road. I got straight. But yeah, you're on that side.
Yes.
So Olive, like my church is Good Shepherd Baptist Church. It's on Olive Road. If you're coming out, MLK.
So Good Shepherd is 1.
Is in 1 now. It used to be in 2. It's in 1 now. But you said Hurd Avenue picks up District 2 when you get up to the Hurd Avenue
So Hurd
side.
Avenue is mine. And then after Hurd Avenue, that's 1.
Okay. Yeah. Those maps are something else.
Yes, you definitely have to go into.
Yeah, those maps are something else. But you pick up some of the major corridors in the city. I mean, you've got a piece of MLK. You've got pieces of Gordon Highway and Peach Orchard Road.
Yes.
And you mentioned another, and some of Wrightsboro Road. So yeah, you have some of the major corridors in the
Daniel
city.
Field Airport.
And Daniel Field is there. So I think Blight, and I'm going to say this very honestly, it sounds like District 2 actually is a better spot than it was a few years ago with old maps. But I have always thought District 2 and honestly probably District 5 were the most endangered parts of the city. And the reason I say that is, yes, District 1 has its share of blight, but District 1 also has downtown. It also has the medical district. There will always be reasons to be in District 1, or at least some portions of District 1 because of those tremendous assets. Downtown, the riverfront, the medical district, which, drives the city's economy in large part. So District 1 will always be there and always have a reason to be viable. District 3 will always be viable. I think District 7 will always be viable. Those are the things that I thought about. But District 2, really sort of interior district, so to speak. When I say interior, it's not on the edges. It's all sort of in the middle of the city. And there's been a lot of blight, historically, a lot of older neighborhoods, some very proud older neighborhoods like Turpin Hill. But just that notion of, I think it will need something extra to thrive too. What's your vision as you think through all that? Tell me, if we could look at District 210, what would you like to see?
It will definitely be a thriving community. That's already in the works. Even as you look at, all of the demolitions that are happening, the new homes that are coming, it's going to be a thriving area from a planning perspective, housing authority perspective, and even with the land that's, as housing and community development starts to move their developments up, they're coming into District 2. So it sits right on the cusp of 1 and 3. So you've got to go through it, right?
Right.
And it's coming. So it's not a matter of will it happen? It's when it's going to happen. And we are right at the brink of it right now. So I would say just keep your eyes and your ears open. And for my constituents, I am consistently telling them, to come together. And as they see opportunities, invest in those opportunities, invest in your community, because the growth is happening.
And that investment is key, because I think that's basically what happened. There was a lot of disinvestment in the area. And that's why so many vacant lots in that area. And it takes a while to come back.
Yes.
It's been years in District 2. But glad to see that there are plans on the horizon. And the program, the Georgia Initiative, say it again.
Georgia Initiative for Community Housing.
For community housing. Does that address specific parts of the district or all of it?
So you had to choose a specific community. And when you looked at that community, there had to be housing that was available, or there had to be land that was available. And so the area that was chosen was Turpin Hill for that reason.
Yeah, Turpin Hill. I drive through there at least every week on my way from my house to Good Shepherd.
But right there together, I do want to say we have Turpin Hill 1 and 2, and we also have Nellyville. So they all come right there together, and they'll all benefit from this growth.
Yeah. Turpin Hill was the place to live in the Black community. If you go back, 50, 60 years, it was the place to be.
Right.
And you still look at some of the homes, and they're absolutely beautiful, stately types of places. And I would love to see a comeback for Turpin Hill.
Yes.
I would love.
I agree.
Because you drive through Grand Boulevard, and it's like, it was really grand at the time. You go back 50, 60 years. So, yeah, we'd love to see some great things happen.
Absolutely.
In that particular area. And that's that's the old core of District 2. But yes, you as you extend further out towards Gordon Highway stuff, there's still a lot of you.
Yes.
So you've got that on the horizon. You mentioned transportation. What do you want to see happen transportation?
So, with transportation, and we are blessed in that our directors, I love when you're speaking to them, you're talking to them, they have vision as well, right? They really do. And so Director Dowdery, her and her team are doing such a great job. They're trying to get all of this figured out. And what do I mean by all of this figured out? Transportation, as you go from city to city, community to community, it looks different for every person. And so even as I spoke about being able to travel and go from place to place, in other areas of the country, transportation is that thing, So people have cars, but they use public transportation because it's easier. And also, as we talk about low emissions and things of that nature, the more cars you have, the higher the emissions are. So it's all of these things that make your air quality go down. And so Ms. Dowdery, Director Dowdery, and her team are always thinking about innovative ways to make sure we stay below what we need to be for those emission rates. So what I would like to see is transportation that is dependable, available to take constituents, not just from their house to the grocery store, but from their house out to the industrial park, right? Because we're also looking for job opportunities, and we're looking for those job opportunities that pay a whole lot. And so in doing that, we've got to make sure that we can get people from one place to another.
And as you mentioned that when I was living in Virginia, I lived in Richmond, and it was everybody took the bus in Richmond, because if you were working downtown, parking spaces were hundreds of dollars a month.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, why not take the bus? It was just a lot easier. Let's talk about this year and what you want your constituents to watch.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that you want your constituents to pay attention to in 2025 that's happening on the commission level?
Yes. So for 2025, I am a continuous person. And so what I mean by that is there is no way you can get everything done in 4 years. Honestly and truthfully, some things you don't even get done in 8 years. That's truth being told. And so the projects that I'm working on, we are consistently working on them. As you look around, you will see that there are more roads that are actually being paved, but I can't even take the credit for all of those, right? Because that work was done before me. So when I get things approved, it's not approved and the next day it's happening. It takes some years to happen. So just watch out for the things that we are getting approved, the things that I am getting approved, the things that I am pushing before the commission. One of the things, a few things, accessory dwelling units. I was able to get that passed for new construction. And that's huge because it does create more housing opportunities. So when you have a lot that is, I want to say the numbers were 0.50 and larger, you can have accessory dwelling units in new construction opportunities. That's big because we need housing. And so it helps us to utilize non-traditional, but they really are still traditional. Because let's think about back in the 1920s, 40s, people lived above where they worked. Mm-hmm. That was commonplace. And even downtown, we see that a lot, right? We see where there's workspace at the bottom and then living quarters at the top. But watch old movies. I'm a movie person, Janice. So watch old movies and you see that. And you see it in larger cities as well. So there's so many creative ways to create accessory dwelling units and multi-units and things of that nature. Another thing, of course, is GIC. GIC is still full speed ahead, and that's a 3-year program. So we're still working on that. We are working on the flooding. That's a big deal. And so then it comes to a point of, do we repave these roads when we know we're going to have to go in and break them up to work on sewer? And you see what I'm saying? So you may say, well, our road hasn't gotten repaved yet. Yes, but we're still working on a plan to correct the sewage problem, to correct, the sewer, or how the stormwater was separated from the sewer. So in correcting that, we don't want to repave the road to go back and take it up, because then that's counterproductive and we're spending more money that has to be spent. So working on all of these plans simultaneously, which is what we are doing by doing these studies, it's going to help. Oftentimes I hear we've been overlooked for so long, and I get that. I understand that. But I just got here in 2023. And so immediately I started addressing all the issues. And you hear that when you tune in. You hear the talks of making sure there are certain standard operating procedures. I brought that up. I brought that to the floor. And why is that important? It's important for all of our departments to have certain standard operating procedures. That way, when calls are made, how do we handle those calls? So when calls come into 311, how do the departments take in those calls? What are the steps and the procedures to make sure things are getting done the way they need to get done? And in a timely manner? How do they do checks and balances? All of those things are extremely important because we're not just looking at right now, we're also looking at succession planning. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it can't just be while Stacy Pulliam is in office. Who's going to take up and carry the torch after I'm here? How can they see what was done before me? How can they jump in and pick right back up where we left off? There has to be some foundational things that are done in our city in order for each elected official to pick up and keep it going, because it was already there. So now I can look at the work order number. They can pull that. Engineering can tell them where they're at with this project. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Because let's be honest, we would like to think in a perfect world, every time a new elected official comes in, they're passing on the information. Sometimes that's not the case, right? Every personality doesn't always get along with every personality, and that's real. And I think we need to start being real and transparent. So there has to be something in place that can easily transition the next elected official into office. And those standard operating procedures are going to be foundational in that.
Okay. You made an excellent point when you were talking about the planning process to get something done. Mm-hmm. The commission may approve funding for Project X in 2018, and it's 2024 or 23 before the project actually happens.
Absolutely.
So a lot of times you'll see work happening. That's something that's been on the table for a long time.
Yes.
And people do need to understand it. It's not like somebody walked in the office and magically this resurfacing project happened. It was probably on the table 5 years before that.
Yes.
So,
yes,
that is exactly how that works because there's so much planning that has to be done. Mm-hmm. You have to fund those things in advance. You got to have money in place, not just to do the study, but to actually implement the project. So all of those things, it's a continuous process to make all of those things happen.
Absolutely.
Yes. As we close out, please let us know what you want your constituents to know about the role they can play in making Augusta a better place.
Absolutely. So for me, it's stay involved. Volunteering is so key. Helping not only your community, but reaching out to your elected officials to see what they are doing, even as you are telling them the things that need to be done. When we're having community breakfasts or when we're having community events, or even as you know about community events, keeping us informed. A real glimpse into our life. There are days where I may have 4 or 5 things that constituents have reached out and want me to attend. And although I would like to be at everything, sometimes I'm not able to be at everything. But I always want to stay connected to what's going on. So let us know about things in advance, but also just volunteering your time. When we see thriving communities, when we see communities that thrive, it's not just local government. It is literally everyone pitching in. It's those private-public partnerships that are so key. So I would say continue to lend a hand so that we can be that voice at the table.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. If people need to reach you, how do they do that?
Yes. So go onto the website. You can always email me at spulliam@augustaga.gov and send those emails to me. You can also call us. All of our information is public forward-facing on the Augusta, Georgia website.
Okay, cool beans. Thank you so much for joining Local Matters.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah.